The Church Growth and Giving Show, your resource for growing faithful communities. Brought to you by Vanco, helping tens of thousands of churches thrive for over 20 years. Join Jordan and Andy as they share insights drawn from decades of church giving and engagement expertise.
Today we're talking about church business meetings. So let's start with the basics. What's the actual purpose of a church business meeting? Because it's easy to lose sight of why you're gathering in the first place.
That's such a great question. At their core, church business meetings should support the church's mission and vision. When they're working well, they keep everyone aligned with the purpose of the church, ensuring that every decision, from budget allocations to new outreach efforts, reflects the church's core values.
I think that's where a lot of meetings go wrong. They become disconnected from the mission.
That's definitely an issue. But when discussions center on the mission, meetings don't feel like bureaucratic red tape. They become a powerful tool for ministry growth. Before diving into budget details or event coordination, leaders should take a step back and ask, how does this decision further our calling?
That reminds me of a church I heard about that begins every business meeting by revisiting their mission statement and spending a moment in prayer focusing on that purpose.
That's a fantastic practice. Keeping the mission at the center helps prevent meetings from becoming a string of disconnected discussions. Instead of debating whether the coffee budget should be cut, conversations focus on what truly matters, like serving your congregation and community.
Do you have any examples of how business meetings have actually helped churches achieve their mission?
I've seen some remarkable examples. One church realized their outreach programs weren't reaching young families. Instead of guessing at solutions, they used a business meeting to evaluate data and feedback, which led to a revamped children's ministry and a surge in attendance.
That's powerful. Using the meeting as a tool for positive change rather than just a procedural requirement.
And that's just one example. Another church restructured its stewardship efforts, shifting funds to support local food banks when a meeting revealed that community needs had changed. These aren't just budget tweaks. They're mission-driven decisions that make a real impact.
What kinds of decisions are typically made during church business meetings? They tend to cover quite a range of topics.
They do. Business meetings cover everything from finances to ministry goals, but not every issue carries the same weight. Some decisions, like staffing changes, demand immediate action. Others, such as facility management plans, require long-term discussion.
How do you recommend prioritizing those decisions? Most of our listeners have probably been in meetings where they spent 45 minutes discussing something relatively minor and then rushed through major decisions at the end.
That's a common problem. It's crucial to sort decisions by urgency and impact. If something affects the church's spiritual health or financial sustainability, it should take priority. Less critical items can be saved for later or handled by a committee.
That's such practical advice. What about meeting frequency? How often should churches hold business meetings?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer. Monthly meetings keep the momentum strong. If your church often has pressing budget updates, or your event planning team is always working on the next significant outreach, meeting every month prevents bottlenecks.
But can more frequent meetings lead to fatigue too?
There's always that risk of didn't we already talk about this fatigue? Quarterly meetings give ministries time to implement plans before reporting back. This works well if your church has multiple committees managing day-to-day affairs. The trade-off? If an urgent matter arises, you might need to call an emergency session. The key is to evaluate your specific church's needs. If your meetings are well attended, decisions get made, and people leave with fewer headaches than they arrived with, you're on the right track. If participation drops or meetings feel like a drawn-out drama with no resolution, it may be time to rethink the schedule.
I've also seen some churches put a lot of emphasis on their annual business meeting. How should that complement more frequent gatherings?
Think of the annual meeting as the church's State of the Union. It's where you step back from the weekly hustle and take a long look at what's working, what's not, and where God is leading your congregation next.
That's a great analogy. So, what topics should be reserved for these annual meetings?
If it involves big numbers, long-term planning, or decisions that will make people say, wait, what did we agree to last year? then it belongs in the annual meeting. Your financial report, leadership updates, and growth strategies deserve center stage here.
What about celebrating achievements too, along with focusing on business items?
An annual meeting without celebration is just a long to do list. Use it to reflect on successes, highlight ministry wins, and cast a vision for the future. Bring in stories, testimonies, and maybe even a little humor.
Let's talk about meeting agendas. Some churches have meetings where there wasn't one at all, and others have meetings that are so detailed and rigid that there's no room for genuine discussion.
A good agenda is the backbone of an effective meeting. It should help you stay on track while keeping things spiritually grounded. The structure is critical. Meetings have a way of expanding to fill the time you give them.
So, what would you include in an essential church business meeting agenda?
Every effective agenda needs these elements. First, an opening prayer and devotional. A meeting without a spiritual focus is just a business discussion. Next, a review of minutes, because no one remembers every detail from last time. Then, financial updates that are transparent but concise.
And then the meat of the meeting, old and new business?
Exactly. Old business addresses ongoing issues, though if a topic keeps coming up without resolution, it might be time to either resolve it or rename it eternal business.
I've definitely been in meetings with some eternal business items.
Haven't we all? Then new business should prioritize key decision-making issues, such as budget planning or new outreach programs. Finally, close with remarks and prayer to end with clarity and a sense of mission.
The spiritual elements are so important to include. It really changes the tone of the meeting.
It does. Weaving spiritual elements into your agenda, such as prayer, devotionals, or scripture readings, keeps the focus on God's purpose. It reminds everyone that it's not just business, it's ministry. Why meet if faith isn't at the center?
Let's talk about meeting facilitation. Many churches use Robert's Rules of Order. How important are they for conducting effective meetings?
Robert's rules exist for a reason. Without structure, discussions spiral into tangents about everything except the actual agenda. These rules keep conversations fair, focused, and productive when used correctly. The trick is knowing when to apply them strictly and when to allow a little flexibility.
Can they be adapted for smaller churches or less formal settings?
They definitely can be. In a smaller committee meeting, rigid formality can feel unnecessary. Instead of requiring official motions for every minor decision, try a streamlined approach, open with discussion, a verbal agreement, and a quick check for objections. The goal isn't to drown in procedure, but to ensure that everyone has a voice without the meeting becoming a free-for-all.
What are some common mistakes to avoid when using these rules?
One classic mistake is treating Robert's rules like sacred scripture. While structure is necessary, over-enforcement can stifle discussion. Another misstep is letting the same few voices dominate. If one person speaks more than everyone else combined, it's time to step in.
That leads to an important point about participation. How can church leaders encourage more active involvement from members during meetings?
A church meeting should never feel like a monologue. People engage when they believe their input matters. If members sit in silence, they either don't feel invited to participate or assume their voices won't make a difference.
Plus, some people are just naturally quieter or less comfortable speaking up in a group setting.
Right. Some people need an open invitation to speak, while others need a gentle reminder that silence isn't the same as agreement. Try directing questions to quieter members. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. With those who talk too much, setting time limits for comments can keep things moving without singling anyone out.
Let's talk about handling church finances during business meetings. That can be a sensitive topic, but it's obviously essential to discuss.
Few things cause meeting attendees to lose interest faster than a spreadsheet full of numbers. Instead of drowning your finance meeting in decimals and line items, tell a story. Show where the money is coming from, where it's going, and why it matters.
I love that approach, making the numbers tell a story rather than just presenting raw data.
Visuals help tremendously. A simple chart can do more than 10 minutes of explanations, and if you ever feel tempted to read financial statements line by line, don't. Budgets should never feel like a math exercise. They're a reflection of your church's mission in action.
So, connecting the numbers to actual ministry impact?
Exactly. Instead of presenting numbers in isolation, connect them to real impact. If you're allocating more to youth ministry, talk about the students whose lives will be changed. If you're investing in outreach, share how it will strengthen your community engagement. People don't rally around numbers, they rally around purpose.
That makes so much sense. What about ministry specific topics? How should those be addressed in business meetings?
Every ministry faces its own set of challenges, from volunteer burnout to budget constraints. The key is to get to the heart of these issues by fostering a space where leaders feel safe enough to open up. It's about addressing challenges head on with no sugarcoating.
How important is collaboration between ministries?
Crucial. Picture this: youth ministry teaming up with the worship team for a special event. Magic, right? Collaboration across ministries is a vital part of a connected, thriving faith community. When you break down silos and share resources, you're not just strengthening programs, but the church as a whole.
Let's talk about what happens after the meeting. I think that's where a lot of churches drop the ball. Great discussion happens, but then nothing changes.
Follow through is critical. Minutes don't need to be a play by play of everything said, but they should focus on the highlights: what was decided, who's doing what, and when it's due.
And then assigning clear responsibilities for action items.
Yes, once decisions are made, it's time for action. Assign tasks to specific people with clear deadlines. No one likes that dreaded, "I thought you were handling that" moment. Clarity keeps everyone on track, whether you're adjusting the budget or organizing an outreach program.
What about regular check ins between meetings?
Absolutely. You can't just hope everything gets done. Regular check ins monitor progress, whether it's a quick staff meeting or a friendly reminder email. A little follow up goes a long way in encouraging stewardship and avoiding last minute scrambles.
What about conflict? It's inevitable when groups of people make decisions together, but how can it be handled constructively?
Disagreements are inevitable, especially when opinions are strong. The key is keeping discussions Christ centered, not ego driven. When tensions flare, a calm mediator can work wonders to move things forward productively and respectfully.
I think the hardest part is dealing with that one person who isn't happy with the decision, even after it's been made.
Every church has that one person who isn't thrilled with the outcome. Instead of dismissing their concerns, listen. Sometimes people just need to be heard before they can move forward. For more insights, there are some excellent church conflict resolution guides available.
As we wrap up, I want to touch on the role of technology in modern church business meetings, especially as more churches are incorporating virtual elements.
Technology has transformed how we can conduct meetings. Virtual meetings don't have to feel like a never ending game of "can you hear me?" Tools like Zoom and Google Meets make it easy to connect, share screens, and brainstorm, all from the comfort of your couch.
And hybrid meetings seem to be here to stay, combining in person and virtual attendance.
They can be a balancing act, but it's worth it. Place cameras where everyone can be seen and use features like live chat to keep virtual members as engaged as those in the room. The key is making sure everyone feels included, regardless of how they're participating.
This has been such a helpful conversation. As we finish up, I know you mentioned there are some free resources available to help churches improve their business meetings.
Yes, we've created several free templates to help churches run more effective meetings. There's a church meeting agenda template for planning and organizing with clarity, a minutes template for accurately documenting discussions and decisions, a sign in sheet, an effectiveness checklist, and a board member portfolio template.
Those sound incredibly useful. Where can our listeners find these resources?
They're all available for free download through the link in our show notes. We've also included our comprehensive church leadership guide that covers best practices, strategies, and helpful tips for church leaders. More than 1,200 church leaders have already used it to improve their management.
Thanks so much, Jordan.
Happy we can help churches and improve their business meetings, Andy.
And thank you all for joining us today on the Church Growth and Giving Show. We hope these ideas were helpful. Please like and subscribe to our channel for the latest updates. It also helps support us in creating free materials and content to help you and other churches in your mission.